Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Don't Risk It podcast presented by VFIS Client Risk Solutions. This program focuses on the exposures our clients frequently encounter and discusses some potential solutions to help reduce these exposures. I'm your host, Chris Rogers with VFIS Client Risk Solutions, and today we're discussing animal strikes while responding in emergency vehicles. Joining me on the program today is Adam Kinsey from Johnsville Ambulance in St. Johnsville, New York, and Adam is the Employee Compliance and Training Manager for Johnsville Ambulance. He's joining us today to discuss some steps his organization has taken to try and minimize the damage that animal strikes can cause to their emergency vehicles. Adam, I hope you're doing well this afternoon, and thanks for joining me on the program.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. It's pretty exciting to me, actually.
That's great to hear. But that's exciting is not always the verbiage that's used. Sometimes it's nerves, but I'm glad to hear that exciting came out. So to start us off, can you tell us about St. Johnsville Volunteer Ambulance Corps and describe your coverage area?
So we operate. We do EMS calls for rural areas of our counties, but we also do a lot of interfacilities, probably about 50-50 interfacility and EMS. We cover two counties, more the western ends of those counties, which is Fulton County and Montgomery counties in upstate New York. Probably give or take about 400 square miles is our primary coverage area, but then we mutual aid for EMS calls to neighboring counties. And then our interfacility teams get requested all over the place. Counties away sometimes. Over an hour just to come to a request because we have a specialty team. So we keep really busy.
Yeah, I was looking and just doing a little research, and I didn't know. I live in Texas, so I didn't know that New York State is roughly 70% forested, and you guys are kind of looks like you're up in that forested area. So with that being said, I think you hit it on a second ago that there's a lot of long distance transfers that, unfortunately, for lack of a better phrase, offers a lot of opportunities for animal strikes.
Yes, you bet. We're right on the edge of the Adirondacks region. So some of our district is in the Adirondacks and some of our district is not. Our transport times for even just an EMS call. So if somebody calls 911, we could be anywhere from 20 minutes to the nearest hospital and as far as 45, 50 minutes to the nearest hospital because our area is just so huge and so rural.
So you could have around a three hour turnaround time to get back to the station.
Sure, easily.
So with that being said, how many animal strikes do y'all average annually, do you think?
The estimate right now, probably about maybe 3 or 4 a year of a good, we definitely got them. Then we have the ones where it's we clip them or we run them over, because some of the little critters we can get over and get away with.
Yeah.
But the bigger ones like the deer, we up where we are actually, we have moose. We just saw a moose 2 weeks ago, just walking down the middle of the road. Black bears, big ones and little ones, bears all the time. And then the deer are the obvious ones. And then we got a crew that swears they saw a mountain lion. I don't know, but it was definitely bigger than a cat. So we have a lot of animals.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I live in Texas, and so our main thing that we see with accounts in Texas are deer strikes. But it sounds like that you have significantly more animals that large animals that you could hit with bear, and then definitely a moose. Those things are huge.
Yes, and when the horses get away on the stables too, we've had plenty of horses, break away.
Oh man, a lot of things going on then. So when did you begin installing brush guards on your vehicles, and what was the cost?
It was probably about 10 years ago as the fleet grew and we got busier. We started adding those. It's give or take maybe about $4,000 to get a brush guard, get it installed. But when we started doing it, we very quickly realized it was necessary, really, because it keeps the cost later on when we do inevitably get a deer strike. It keeps the damage down so much to the point that in some cases we don't even have damage to the vehicle. So, again, 10 years ago and at $4,000 per vehicle, it was certainly worth it.
And the downtime that you don't have to deal with, and also the unit that was probably hit was probably a frontline unit or a frontline apparatus. So you had some downtime that you saved yourself from, where you're keeping your frontline rigs on the road.
Right. And that's something we factor into when we estimate those costs for savings is, again, if a mainline rig goes down, that can't even say if you're lucky, but if it's the main rig, that means you're in the secondary rig. But we frequently rotate our rigs for a lot of PM to make sure our rigs stay in the best condition they can and that they're on the road as long as we can, which means that when you already factor in your main rig may already be down just for like an oil change or tire rotations or something. So you might even be in the second line rig. Well, if that second line rig hits a deer and does a lot of damage, well, now you're using your third line rig, which, when you start factoring your PMs and stuff like that too, you can go from having 8 ambulances on the road to 4 ambulances really quickly just by PM and, catching a deer or something.
So do you all put these on the whenever you get a new unit or new rig? Do you all put them on there from the jump, or what's the process for doing that?
We have started that over the last few years of just making it every rig we get now. We before we even put it on the road, or like as reasonably close to when we put it on the road, we get the brush guards, the brush guards on them. If you catch a deer, you can do so much damage to a vehicle that we put them on right away now. We don't even wait. It almost seems risky to wait.
Right, because you're living in a gray area where something bad could happen. So do you, whenever you have an impact with these guards, is there any downtime, or does it essentially save the ambulance from having to go into the shop to and I know you can't speak for every incident, but generalization, does it typically keep the rig in service where you're not having to take it out of service to a shop?
Yeah. So in most instances, the brush guards have saved us from major and sometimes even any damage. So again, you can always catch them just right where they go like just in between it perfectly. But in most cases, it really does. If you catch a deer, it's little to no damage to the vehicle. I will say I was with another ambulance service that followed a similar practice of the brush guards, and we had just got a brand new ambulance, brand new from the manufacturer. This was probably the first week on the road, and we had hit a deer responding to a call. Probably doing about 75 miles an hour on the highway, caught a deer, exploded the deer, and we cracked the lens cap. That was the only damage to the vehicle. Oh, wow. Whereas if we didn't have that guard, we are confident we'd have done so much damage to this brand new ambulance. It'd have been off the road for weeks, probably months, waiting for parts and maintenance. And then, you always have those vehicles too. Whenever you have a good type of collision like that, it never feels the best going forward. Your alignment never feels perfect again. It just never feels perfect again. And imagine, your first week with a brand new ambulance, and then that's how you own it for the rest of the life of the ambulance. So the brush guard saved that ambulance absolutely.
So do your vehicle maintenance vendors, do they have any issues accessing the engine compartment because we're kind of putting a bit of an obstruction in their way? I know it's obviously not on top of the hood, but it could inhibit access to some areas to do maintenance on the vehicle. So have they experienced any of that?
So far, to my knowledge, no. It seems like there's just enough space between the engine compartment area and where it actually sits out that it really doesn't seem to get in the way of anything. You can still get into your regular PM, but even things like your sirens, like it doesn't block the siren, which would reduce how loud your audible warning devices would be. It doesn't really block that. It doesn't block the engine compartments, and you still have full access to everything. So I've not had a single maintenance person, anytime we've ever sent it out, have an issue with them.
Good to hear. Sometimes when you add things to it, it could inhibit their access to things, but it's good to hear that these things are not doing that. So moving on to the education piece, what education is provided to your staff regarding animal strikes?
Yeah, that's built into our, we have our initial training for all new hire, any employee that comes in. We use CEVO 4, which is coaching the emergency vehicle operator. Actually, I think they're on version 5 now. We use that for our initial training. And then within that module, it includes like how to navigate, animal strikes or avoiding collisions and things like that. And then not only do that for new hires every year, but then we also annually, everyone has to redo that again. It has a lot of learning modules which explain those practices, but then we also have skill sheets where they'll sometimes some personnel can ride with training officers, and then we pull out like the traffic cones and help with under like feeling the vehicle, because really when you're navigating, you have you're trying to dodge an animal, we don't want you doing, we call it like a hard steer.
Right.
And with brush guard, when you think that you have your partner in the back, we don't want you to crank the wheel to dodge an ambulance, because you can hurt your partner, you can total the ambulance, there's a lot that can happen. Whereas with brush guard, you can kind of, if you hit the deer, you hit the deer, but you save your partner, you save yourself, and you probably didn't do much damage to the vehicle.
I think that's probably got to be one of the biggest mental hurdles to get over, for at least from my own personal perspective, is you see something in the road and your first thought is to swerve away from it or move away from it, which we don't want to deplete the animal population in the world, but we also don't want to deplete the human population in the world. So sometimes we got to make that choice, and turning a hard left, hard right to try to go around it can sometimes and oftentimes be the worst thing that can happen. Do y'all speak to that in your training?
We do, yeah. That the emphasis is kind of placed on, if you need to hit the animal, hit the animal. And that's, again, with the brush guards, that's the strategy we took to try to mitigate the damage to the vehicle, because we would rather you hit the ambulance, hit the animal. And then, we'd rather you hit the animal than launch your partner. So we do, yeah, there is a big emphasis on don't hard steer, which is, it's a challenge, especially with our newer personnel, our newer drivers. The reaction, again, you feel like you want to dodge it, but that might be easier in your car than in this large ambulance.
It's good that you all train on that for that specific reason, because a lot of the younger folks coming into the service, they might not have any experience in a larger vehicle, or they didn't go get their license when they were 16, so they might not have as much experience in driving. So to reaffirm that go through the animal in some cases is the best case scenario, is something to put in their head and then reinforce it through training, I think is a positive step to take.
Mm-hmm. And the understanding, there's no, sometimes people have fear of like repercussions for things like, oh, if I wreck the ambulance because I hit a deer, are they going to question my driving? And we have an emphasis on that we don't. We're not going to. We know our crews are going to make the right decisions, and we want them to feel comfortable with their decisions, even if it, the decision was, yeah, I hit the deer because my partner was standing, I didn't lock the brakes. Well, I'm glad you did that. That's an okay decision. And then we have cameras in our ambulances too, which will, may show somebody decided like, hey, you have that split second decision. I'm going to hit the deer because my partner's standing. But again, it's a hard thing to educate, to get people to understand, that it's okay.
Yeah, often I would think that oftentimes deer strikes are not a preventable incident, because they come out of nowhere, and sometimes they run into the side of you, and they're very unpredictable. So I would think that reinforcing that's something that's non-preventable, or for the most part is a non-preventable incident, is very key to individuals who might think that there's going to be something punitive that comes out of it.
Right.
So one last question. I think you've kind of talked about it, but could you summarize, what benefits has St. Johnsville Volunteer Ambulance realized with these brush guards?
I would say the biggest thing we've realized is it keeps the vehicles in service longer. There's a lot less downtime. We end up with less damage to the vehicles, and it's kind of maybe some of that knowing that, if the animal does come out, we we're probably not going to have that catastrophic vehicle loss. Whereas if we didn't have the brush guards, that could total an ambulance.
And you also, I mean, by doing that training of going through the, keep going straight, that you're also in secondarily saving your crew from some injuries too, because if they go turning drastically left or right, they could quickly have that thing rolling or on its side or some type of accident where it injures the crew, the public, the patient, multiple things. That's I think it's a great program that. What you all do from a training perspective to let them know that what to do and something that they might not have encountered before.
Right.
Well, Adam, I want to thank you for joining the program today. It was a pleasure to have you on, and I want to thank you for all the great information.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you for listening to the program and for your interest in VFIS safety resources. I want to thank our guest, Adam Kinsey, once again for his time and information. Please consider subscribing to our program to stay up to date on new content releases. Also, if you like what you've heard, please consider leaving a review below. For more information about the many resources available from VFIS, please visit VFIS.com. And to submit ideas for future discussions, please reach out by email at VFISriskcontrol@VFIS.com. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day. The views, information, or opinions expressed during this program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Gladfelter Insurance Group, VFIS, and its employees.